Hi, I'm James Gangle and welcome to my little kitchen. A lot of people have been asking where I've been for the last 2 weeks, and the totally untrue answer is that I went fishing for cod off the coast of Newfoundland and Labrador. And I caught cod, like a whole ton of cod. But how do you get a trunk full of cod back to Toronto without it spoiling? You pack it in salt. So today on Little Kitchen, we are using salt cod to make a rich and creamy cod au gratin. Come on.
Cod au gratin starts with salted cod, and this cod is salty. How salty? Like this salty. Like this salty. You see all that salt? Like this salty.
I've seen more hair on a starfish's arsehole, you balding Jimmy Fallon. You don't have a forehead, you have an 8-head.
Okay, well, that's enough of that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get some of that salt out of the cod and rehydrate it. So a day before, you're going to want to soak your cod. Here I've got cod in a Ziploc bag, and I've soaked this for about 24 hours, changed the water a few times, but you can keep that last bag of water because we're going to want to use it to boil our potatoes. We're going to parboil these potatoes for about 20 minutes or so, just soften them up. In the meantime, we are going to soften up our onions. So, I've turned this on to about medium heat, medium-high heat, and we'll pour in some olive oil. So I've got about 4 medium-sized yellow onions here. We're also going to soften up our garlic. So, we can toss in half of our garlic, which is about 3 or 4 cloves. Total, we're going to do 6 or 8 cloves of garlic. We'll toss those in, and we'll salt and pepper our onions and garlic as we go. I think we can give this a little toss, a little move around in the pan, and just let them soften up, baby! So this looks pretty nice, right? They're kind of soft. They're a little translucent, so we can set our softened onions aside for the time being. And now we can work on our I don't know how to pronounce it in French, but it's just butter and flour. So let's do that now. This is what is the base to most creamy sauces, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to make a nice creamy bechamel sauce to pour over this cod au gratin. That requires butter. A lot of butter, because I'm doing 2 pounds of cod. So I'm going to say we're going to put in about 6 tablespoons of butter. Let this melt down. Now that our butter has melted down, we're going to add the flour. For this amount of butter, I would say it's about 4 tablespoons of flour. You want this to kind of turn into, like quicksand, I guess. It'll bubble, and it'll expand, and it'll change shape. Believe me, it'll happen. Right now it looks like plasticine, but it's gonna happen. It's starting to happen. But it won't happen on your time. It'll happen on God's time. Like love. Huh? What did I tell you? Not quite solid, not quite liquid. It's kind of ever expanding. This is not a dish that you should take lightly. In fact, you should take it heavily, because we're using heavy cream, baby. So toss in a cup of heavy cream, and then a cup of half and half, which is 10%. We're gonna toss that in. We're just gonna whisk this up until it becomes like a nice smooth and creamy texture. This is what I'm talking about. This is a nice creamy thing. But let's have a little taste. Yeah, it's bland. Needs salt and pepper. Toss in a little salt, grind in a little pepper, just a pinch of nutmeg, and kind of my favorite part, we're going to put in about a cup of freshly grated Parmigiano Reggiano, 3 tablespoons of parsley, and we're going to toss in about a cup of wine. Now we're going to let this simmer away, and we'll work on our potatoes. So our potatoes have been boiling away for about 20 minutes, which means they have a bit of a parboil. They're not fully done. And what we're going to do is we're going to fish these out, because we're going to use this water for our fish. We're going to let them cool for a bit so that we can handle them. Ow, ow, that's already hot. I've gotten a little salty. Sorry, Mom. Now we're going to toss these rehydrated cod fillets into the water. We'll let them boil for about 5 minutes just so that they're able to flake. Okay, our cod has been bubbling away for about 5 minutes, so it's time to drain it.
Happy, happy, joy, joy.
Now we can set this cod aside and forget. No, we're not going to forget it. It's the best part of this meal, but it's got to cool down. Our potatoes are cool to the touch, so we're just going to chop them up in sort of kind of 1/4-inch pieces, not quite as thin as a scalloped potato, but not quite as thick as a potato that hasn't been chopped at all. So there, that's the last of our potatoes. And now it's time to build this dish. So I'm going to pour a little bit of olive oil on the bottom of this casserole dish, just so the potatoes don't stick. I'm going to smooth it out with this cute little spatula I've got here. And now we begin the layering process. So, take a layer of potatoes. We're kind of making a lasagna, a fish lasagna, a fish and potato lasagna. It's not much like a lasagna other than there's layers. So layer potatoes at the bottom. Don't gotta be pretty, just gotta be done. Fill in any gaps with little weirdo potatoes you have. It's the proper term for them, weirdo potatoes. There's our first layer of potatoes. And then we're gonna do a layer of onions and garlic. So that's about half of your onions and garlic go in there. There you go. And now we're gonna take our cod and we're gonna break them up into rough bits. Use about half your cod because we're gonna repeat this process. There we go. Then we're gonna cover in our nice cream sauce. So half of your cream sauce goes on here. And then we're gonna repeat the layering process. Potatoes, onions and garlic. The last half of your cod. And cover in your bechamel, in your cream sauce. Smooth it all out. Give it a nice finish here. And then you should have about a cup of Parmesan left over. And so we're just gonna sprinkle that on top of our sauce. And finally, the gratin part of cod au gratin, which is breadcrumbs, or in my case, I use panko chips because I like that crispy layer and I feel like panko chips, there's no replacing that. So we're gonna cover the top with our panko crumbs. Look at that, it already looks incredible, but we have to bake it for 40 minutes at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. All right, our cod has been in there for 40 minutes, so it's time to take it out and check it out. Oh yeah, look how crunchy and delicious this looks. Like always, I want to eat this right away, but I am going to wait 10 minutes for this to set up and cool off just a tad. Our cod au gratin has been sitting for 10 minutes, so nothing left to do but to taste it. Cod au gratin! Mmm! That is so delicious and creamy and soft. You gotta make it. Even if your salty cod gives you guff, just cook it and it'll soften up. Mmm! That's good.